It's good to see you guys again. I know you guys know that I'm medicated up and recovering from a little bit of a bug. I don't know which one it is. Probably the flu from the body aches and everything like that. But that's okay. All we need to do, keep our hands washed, right? Keep isolated from other people so we don't get them sick, right? Wipe down our touch surfaces in our house, right? Take some Tylenol, treat the symptoms, right? With Mucinex, things like that, and you'll be just fine. Watch your breathing, watch your temperature, watch your blood pressure, and you do those things. And if they get out of whack, well, you go into the hospital and you get looked at, right? Right. So that being said, I appreciate all your guys' love and prayers and support that you've given. You guys are always awesome when I'm feeling down. Uh, I'm a little out of breath. Sorry about that. But I wanted to still do a video before the medication starts to wear off and share something that is kind of a special thing for me. I'm sure you guys all know what lever guns are, right? Things like that, lever action. 30-30 is one that usually comes to mind, right? Winchesters, Marlins, things like that. Things like this. Let's see. Like this. All right? This is a, let's see here, Model 94, right? It's got the side loading gate on it. And I don't think, not, yeah, it's just got the side loading gate on it. This one's in 30-30. It's got an external hammer on it. It's nice, lightweight, it's thin, it's robustly built, tough. It's a great little bush gun, right? Something great for getting out there in the mountains that you can throw in a scabbard. It can be bunged around and whatnot like that and still survive and work the way you need it to, right? Now this one here is one that was my dad's, that was handed down to him or that he got at some point during his life, and I managed to keep after he passed away. So things like this are really special to me, and I hope they're special to you. See, that's part of collecting things, whether it be guns or old tools or just furniture, old furniture, antiques, things like that. It's the story and the memories that come with them, right? That's what's important. At least it is. That's what it is for me. I also like to use them, right? Now, this one's not particularly old, so it's not something that I'm worried about using and whatnot, but it's fun to use because when you're using it, it brings back memories of being with the loved ones that you would go out and shoot with, that taught you how to shoot and how to be safe with guns and accurate and responsible and all those things that we're supposed to be teaching our kids that I think we've fallen away from. Wouldn't you agree? I would agree. We need to get back to that, right? So that being said, let's see here, found this little guy here. Whoa. See what I mean about tough? It'll be okay. Now, these have all been checked, of course, and they're empty. But that being said, this I saw a while back, and I put it on layaway and was just kind of slowly paying it off because when I saw it, it reminded me of my dad. He had an old Savage like this, lever action, and it's kind of unique. And that's why I wanted to share it with you guys. It's different, it's different from all the other ones, the Marlins and all those other brands, Henry, Winchester, and all those that made those. Those are all ones we're used to seeing. This one you don't see so much, right? And I wanted to tell you a little bit about it for a few reasons. One, because it brings back memories, and I enjoy this video just having it in my hands. And so I was really blessed that I saw this, and thankful that I could get it. At the same time, it has some unique features that were different from the ones we're used to seeing, the ones that have become kind of mainstay, right? That even up to the modern firearms, that we are all used to seeing. Now, this one here, of course, they stopped making them, I think, right around 2003, right? It's not a style that you see anymore, but it had calibers that from weird things like those 22 35s and 22 250. It had 375 Savage, 308, 300 Savage, all that kind of stuff. And what makes this one special to me is my dad, of course, had to go out and find himself one that was in 300 Savage. Now, back then, because this rifle here, according to where it was made, at least. Now, I haven't looked into the serial numbers yet to find out the exact manufacturer date, but I'll do that. as I get time. But this one, according to where it was made somewhere between 1947 and 1959. So it's an old gun, and it's heavier, it seems like, than the Winchester that I showed you. And it's in, of course, 300 Savage. Now, there's nothing wrong with 300 Savage. It's very similar to 308, but it's maybe a little less powerful, just a smidge. But it is very hard to find these days. They only make limited runs of ammo every so often, and when you see it, you should buy it. And when you do see it, to go and buy it, especially these days, it's not going to be cheap. It's going to hurt a little bit. That being said, this one, fortunately, had some ammo that I could purchase with it as well. And I'll show you that in a minute because you'll get a kick out of it. But I wanted to share this with you and tell you a little bit about it. One thing that makes this unique is it's one of the older models. Now, somebody has tapped it so they could put a scope on it, and it's got this old Leopold Pioneer 4-power. It has the T-post style, like it has a, you know what I mean? It doesn't have a cross. It's like a T in there, which is really kind of cool. And 4-power is perfect for a round like this, right? Because you're talking about something that is effective from, from right in front of you out to about 300 yards max, maybe 200 pretty reliably. Just depends on the rifle, how good of a shot you are, etc. Right? And one of the other things that was nice about this is the Savage was able to get some heavier bullets too. Right? It started having you could find, and the ones I found were mainly 150 grain, 175. Then you could find 185s, and I think you could even find or load yourself 190s. And if you load, you can of course do anything you need to. Just make sure that you check your book when you're loading and work your loads up the right way, because it is an older gun and you don't want to put it through too much pressure, right? You want to be safe with it. So let's go over what makes this a unique firearm. Now, one, it doesn't have an external hammer. It's got an internal hammer, right? Or firing mechanism, let's say, right? Now, it still has a lever action, right? But you can see that it's curved. It's not straight like the other one, right? And it has a little lock on there. Look at that. See, that there's the safety. See, when that's on, you can't chamber it and you can't pull the trigger. But when you pull it back, then you can pull the trigger. Now, you'll notice something disappeared right there on top. That's one of the other neat, unique features that I think was kind of ahead of its time, especially things as though this was made back in, the 1940s, right? And actually, I think the original design, when it was thought of, was pretty early 1900s, right? Maybe even late 18. But it didn't reach production until about 1922, I think, 21, right in there. That being said, and there was different models too. This is the 99. They had the 93 and the 95, or 92, 95, and some prototypes. Then they had, when they got to the 99, they had some special variants that were things like fancy guns, engraving, different stocks, Monte Carlo stocks, fancier wood, all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of variety in there, and there's a lot of variety in calibers that you could get it in. Now, the other thing that made this unique is, as you can see when I chamber that, you see that little pin right there that pops up? Now watch it go away. Right? That is a chamber indicator. It lets you know that you were cocked and ready to go, right? So that being said, that's something you see on more modern guns right now, especially handguns and whatnot. But for back then, it wasn't something you saw an awful lot, right? Which is a really neat feature because, in the dark or in, low light conditions, things like that, you could feel it and know that there was ready to go. Now, the other thing that made this really unique is it has a rotary magazine in here. So the magazine isn't a tube that comes up through the back, or not a tube that comes from the front, not a side loading gate or anything like that. It had a magazine that was inside of it that rotated the rounds inside as you put them in through the opening here. So you'd open it up like this, load your rounds in here through the top, and it rotated around. That was actually a pretty forward-thinking, unique thing for its time. And the reason being is, I'll put this thing down, it ain't light. The reason being is because the old Winchesters and whatnot, because, let's see if I pick this guy up here. Okay. Yeah, see, I told you it's okay. Because they're loaded in a tube like this, you'll find that most of your bullet choices were round nose. This allowed the use of Spitzer points. And the reason that is because they wanted to load round noses in here because there was a chance that under recoil, having them stacked pointy tip to primer, pointy tip to primer, could set off a chain fire inside the tube, right? That's always possible to happen. So they put a round nose on there to alleviate that from happening, right? So you were kind of stuck with that. Not being able to use, say, because we all know that Spitzer point, especially Spitzer point boat tails, are far more ballistically efficient and accurate than a round nose. While a round nose can be accurate, don't get me wrong. I love a good 180 grain round nose. It hits hard, but it allowed you to use, say, something that was a little more accurate, get you a little more distance, buck the wind a little bit better, that kind of thing. So it really was kind of a unique thing for its time. And that's what really kind of drew people to it. Now, I think what detracted people from it is it kind of looked funny, right? And let's face it, Winchester, Henry, all those other guys, they all, excuse me, not feeling too good. They all had kind of the grip on the market as well, right? And these had already kind of made their way in. Now, so that rotary magazine, the other thing that I think is really unique is you'll notice, if you look right there above my finger, right, you'll see a round counter. And what that does is it tells you, and it says like 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 6. You can put 6 rounds into the magazine, and it'll keep count of what's in the magazine. Now, keep in mind, when it says 0, that means there could be still, or is probably still, 1 in the chamber. And there's 0 in the magazine. That, honestly, is a pretty good idea for its time, and it more mechanically, right? It was something a little more intricate to make, not quite as easy as just trying to remember how many were in there. But it gave the shooter, especially, like, say, in military, because I'll tell you stories about the military here on this, it gave them the ability to have a round count and know when it was time to reload so that they could plan their attacks or their maneuvers and things like that. But for the most part, this rifle was used for hunting and whatnot. Now, that being said, most of the time it just has a front blade with a brass little bead on it, and then it had a rear, shoot, those medications must be getting to me. It had a rear blade back here, right? Now, whoever put this on and machined all that, machined off, and they did a nice job of machining off that, but I wish they hadn't. But I know why they did, because the scope sits so low, they didn't want to interfere with the scope, right? So they took that blade off. Now, I'll probably look around in the old websites of old parts and find me a blade just so I have one to put back on there if I want. This one is in just beautiful shape, even though it is in 300 Savage, which is, a hard round to find. Now, that being said, I'll show you. I did manage to find, of course, 7 boxes. But it stung a little bit to get 7 boxes. And some of them, like this one, is pretty old. I don't think I'll shoot it because some of the bullets in it are a little bit loose. I didn't notice that at the time of getting it. But then again, the box is pretty cool, so I might just put this one up for display, right? And I'm not sure if these aren't reloads too, but I might go ahead. I think I'll check and see what the originals of this look like, because the bullet looks kind of funny. So I'll look into that, and it'll probably just be something on a mantelpiece. Now, that being said, this one is perfectly fine. This is just an older box of Remington clean bore, which is just fine. These are 150 grain, and all the rest of these, as you can see, are regular core locks that you see even produced today in these green boxes. Now, that being said, you can find companies that will custom load, or they do small runs of 300 Savage for people out there looking for it. But as you can see, that's pretty expensive, right? Right. Now, of course, thanks to having a good relationship in building networks in my local area of people, I got a deal on it. Let's just say that. And that's one positive about building community, and why I always talk about communities and how important they are, and how important building networks are, and treating people with respect and kindness, and don't take advantage of people. All that kind of stuff is because when it comes to the times when we really need to be taken care of, people will remember what you did, and they'll be able to take care of you. And in return, I'll be able to take care of them. If they were to call me up and say, hey, I need some food out of your garden and whatnot, would you be willing to do that? And I'd be saying, oh, of course, because you cut me a deal on some of that 300 Savage. And this person, because I built this network with them and a relationship, which is really important, right? Because that's what life's about is what is that? Relationships, right? That being said, I'll know I'll be able to trust them not to come do anything funky or weird, right? Right. So let's talk a little bit about the gun. I already told you about the hammerless tilting bolt. Well, I didn't tell you about the tilting bolt. When you look at it, this bolt kind of tilts back a little bit and then tilts up into place, whereas the other one is straight back in order to cock the hammer and then puts it back in. And of course, like I said, it's a hammerless design. It's still a lever action, rotary magazine, holds 6 plus 1 in the tube. It has the round counter I told you about. Later models, they had ones, when I say later, that's always kind of weird to me. Isn't that always weird to you? You talk about later models, and whenever I think of later, I think of older. I don't know why. But newer models, let's just put it that way, or later models, actually have some of them with detachable magazines that clipped in the bottom. Because of that, they had to eliminate the round counter. But then again, you could pop out the magazine and look, and just to make sure how many you had, or do a mag change, right? So that was kind of a neat one. If you see ones out there with a mag change, with a magazine, those are newer models made from the 60s all the way up to 2003. And they're pretty handy. Most of these were built in 20 to 26 inch barrels. By the looks of this one, that looks like about a 20-inch barrel right there, which is perfect because 26, you get a lot more burn time and you'll get closer to the performance of a 308, but you won't have that handleability that you kind of want out of a rifle like this. Because let's face it, this is kind of a medium, even some large game people will hunt with it, rifle that is for thick brush and things like that, right? So it was popular, of course, with big game hunters because it had some calibers like that 30 or 375 Savage, and there were some others that were bigger rounds that allowed people to use this as a good intermediate to large game gun. The variants were from 1892 to 1895, were the two main variants, and then in those, like I said, there were fancy ones. Now, some interesting history, and I won't get into all the history of it, but it was submitted to replace the Springfield trapdoor, but the Springfield trapdoor with our military, but it lost out to the Craig Jorgensen, right? And that was chosen over this lever action. Now, I don't know about you. I'm sure there's some Craig Jorgensen fans out there, but I think I would have rather had something like this because of how much more modern it was and handier, and the rotating magazine and the round counter and all that kind of stuff. But you let me know down in the comment section what you think. And if you have any other information to add, please always share it. I am by far no way a professional in any of this, but I do like sharing these things because to me they mean a lot for not only sentimental reasons, but to help, share knowledge with all of you. So that being said, it was also submitted after that. After it lost out to the Craig Jorgensen, it was submitted to the New York National Guard. Now, the funny thing in that is the New York National Guard actually accepted it and ordered, 2,500, I think, of them. Yeah, I think that was right. Oh, no, excuse me. Let's step back a little bit. These were adopted by the Montreal Home Guard in World War I, and they ordered 2,500 of them, but the record showed that only 803 were actually received, right? And that one they wanted in 303 Savage because they wanted to stick with that 303 round that they had in their Lee infields and things like that. So Savage worked with them to make that happen, and that was given to the Montreal Home Guard. Then the New York National Guard here wanted to, were thinking of adopting it. It actually won. They made an order of it, but just like our government today, there were kickbacks, backdoor deals, political bargaining back and forth. And in the end, they reneged on the deal and instead went with, oh, you're going to love this, the trapdoor. Now, I don't know about you, but I would rather have this all day long over the trapdoor. Now, don't get me wrong, the trapdoor, that's a great round. It hits hard. But come on, let's face it. Lever action or a trapdoor, which would you rather have? Put it down in the comment section, right? Now, we're going to take this one out to the range, of course, just like, and also the Winchester and stuff, and kind of go comparing them side by side, right? And doing some shooting. See how they do accuracy-wise, right? See how they do handling-wise, things like that. And, well, that's pretty much it. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys, let me know if you enjoy these kind of old guns, because I got a lot of old things I can share, a lot of things new that I can share. I mean, I got a lot to share with you guys. And I know I seem a little scatterbrained in this video, and I apologize for that. I hope you guys don't mind too much. Like I said, I'm medicated up, not feeling entirely well, but I wanted to get this video out to you guys because I was thinking about it and my dad, and I was, just really stoked to get it. And I can't hardly wait to get out to the range and do some shooting with it as soon as the weather changes. Speaking of weather, I hope all of you guys out there that are dealing with all of the severe weather out there, all my prayers and love go out to you guys, and I hope you're doing okay and are staying warm and dry. So, until next time, stay safe, stay secure, always be aware of your surroundings, always carry, and be ready and prepared for anything that may come your way. Till next time, adios and aloha.